Yeah, Zimbabwe, like many other countries in Africa, is actually grappling with the challenge of climate change. And climate change impacts are being felt with through the increase in floods, increase in drought incidences, and to a greater extent, there are also strong winds which have not been witnessed before. And these floods are often caused by cyclones. The challenge that is befalling us is actually increasing. And as a country, we are mainly trying to make people more aware of how they have to relate to with the environment uh, for the reason of controlling or trying to control the effects of climate change in our country. Climate change is making people poorer, especially where it could cause these disasters, which are normally destroying houses, destroying people's investments, which to some extent, some of them would not be able to recover even after many years. So, what we are doing to a great extent in the country, uh, in the agricultural side, we are adopting and rolling out climate smart agriculture, which is a practice that is mostly known as conservation agriculture. So this practice it tries to make communities uh, disturb the soil lesser and lesser, while also trying to move away from a kind of farming where people have to be destroying vegetation for them to grow their crops. But we are trying to make sure that we conserve as much as possible, as much as we are also getting a living from the ground. So government has been also encouraging people to grow crops on a lesser or on smaller pieces of ground, uh, and try to make sure that those smaller pieces of ground are adequately fed in terms of nutrients, so that people are discouraged from the old norms of growing crops on very large pieces of land, yet sometimes harvesting very little. So it's one of the ways which we actually have adopted as a climate solution, climate smart solution. And we are also encouraging people to grow trees. Actually, as a country, every first week of December, the whole country will be growing trees. So normally these trees can be given for free by the forestry commission in the country, and the president himself will be leading the process, and it will be happening throughout the country. Those are some of the aspects. And also, in addition, the country controls the sale and cutting down of trees and the sale of firewood, because many of the people still use firewood. And as a result, we have to control how people sell this firewood. And the cutting of trees, even in the rural areas, is now to a great extent prohibited. And the traditional leaders, we have tried very much to restore the forestries in their areas. And now it's no longer that everyone who wants to go and cut trees will go and do it at any particular time. You have to be given permission, and for a reason, you may be allowed to cut the trees. But sometimes the community would actually agree or like once per year on a particular day that they can go and cut trees, and on that particular day, the traditional leaders will actually show them which trees to cut. And in many cases, they would make people cut trees which are not very supportive of the other trees growth, or trees which are not more beneficial in that society, or trees that are dangerous to animals or even to children and men in general. So basically, we have done that, and that has actually helped the country to a great extent to restore their forests. And in many areas, if one goes there today, you will find that it's now quite better. Initially or previously, people have been cutting these trees without any control. And one of the main issues that we have been facing is that most of our houses have been built through the burning of bricks through kilns. And these kilns have been actually operated using firewood. And people have not been using other methods of burning these bricks. And as a result, it means everyone who was building a house, especially in the rural areas, would have to also cut some trees for them to be able to burn these bricks. And in the modern days, people are now encouraged to try and build houses using cement. And this has been actually more supported by the challenges that people are facing where they've built their houses with these bricks, which are normally not very strong. And hence, when floods come, these houses have not been found to be strong. So people are already migrating to the use of cement bricks instead of bricks that are actually bent through the kilns. In addition, the country has also encouraged people when they, for example, grow their crops. They've been encouraged to also do intercropping or something like that, to grow more than one crop in the field, so that it reduces evaporation, it reduces the challenges that can be brought about by overuse of land, which has been one of the major reasons why people would, after a short while, move from one particular piece of land to the other piece of land. People are also encouraged to reduce overgrazing by trying to have a minimum number of animals which are adequate enough and commensurate with the available pieces of land in a particular area. And people slowly are getting to understand and to take these issues seriously. Previously, people used to like huge numbers of animals, for example, cattle as a measure of their worth. But in the modern days, it looks we are also moving slowly away from that, and we are to a great extent conserving the environment, mainly because people have also learned that most of these animals that they have been keeping, they have also not to a great extent been sustainable, because once a drought comes, they will be wiped away again. So people are slowly getting to understand the issues of climate change. In the same context, education is constantly going to all levels of our society around climate change, and people are slowly now understanding what it is and what they must do in order for us to reduce this challenge that we are already faced with. So in the same context, we also have a lot of other ways which we are also embracing in trying to reduce the effects of climate change. One of them is to enlarge or increase the number of livelihoods option that people have, so that they do not only depend on agriculture to a great extent, which is the mainstay of most of the rural people in our country, mainly because there are less jobs people mostly opt to relating more with the environment, but in a negative way, because that is where they would actually derive their livelihoods. And as a result, we've tried to increase livelihoods options, and one of the options which are already being put in place include, for example, in a home, uh, trying to grow crops that are adaptive to the area in which those people actually live. For example, small grains, while at the same time, for example, having chickens, while at the same time probably having goats, because in some areas goats are good, they can thrive in some of the areas, especially dry areas of our society. But one of the major challenges that people have not been quick in taking up some of these new options, which have been proven by science to be more adaptive in their areas or context. And as a result, but the government, for example, recently, they've been also rolling out some of these schemes, whereby it was giving people some small grains for promoting the adaptive farming. And it looks people are now actually more interested. People were not interested in these small grains because the small grains, people had left using or eating small grains a long time ago, although recently it has become more fashionable. And it looks people are increasingly now taking up these new options, which have been traditionally seen as quite an old way of living. So these are some of the ways in which in Zimbabwe we are trying to actually move towards climate smart living and climate smart adaptive mechanisms, which actually are adaptive, while at the same time we are trying to mitigate the effects of climate change. So we are trying to move in a two-pronged approach, adapting to the current effects which we are already facing, while at the same time mitigating the future effects that we are faced with. And unfortunately, people have got very limited options, but we are trying to do what we can at our level so that we also contribute globally. Although people still small pieces of land for agriculture, many people do not have the appropriate nutrients like fertilizers. Hence, it still becomes a challenge because whereas we want them to grow on smaller scales, but with higher nutrients, mostly these people are being given these inputs, and the sustainability of giving these people these inputs, I think, is really bleak. It's not going to be possible in the longer term. So, but basically, it looks like we've rolled out these so that people can also start to learn that they can adopt new ways of living and the new ways for their livelihoods, which are at least better for them and which prevent them from suffering the effects, the shocks of climate change. Thank you.